All right, welcome everyone. This is Darren Price, Asham, thesyllabus.org. It's November 1st, 2014, Saturday the Sabbath. Relax. So, as some of you already know what I do, it's been about 10 years to the day since I started up thesyllabus.org, and there's a specific reason for that, and you can YouTube my very first video and it tells my story about it. So, moving right along though, as I posted earlier today, and I've got the 7-part series that I've been working on, and I'm going to go through it with you, just so you know what's going on to kind of help you out, because the syllabus is a guide to every semester of your life, and it will really break down why I made it and how I made it, and who I made it for, which is not just for me. So a lot of you all know, you see my posts, very encouraging. I do text messages, Facebook posts, Twitter, etc., etc. Some of them are controversial, just to make you think, because you can't sleep on everything, and you have to be aware of what's going on and be aware of yourself. So with that being said, I'm going to get started into my 7-part series, and it's in relation to my business card. As you all see, it has a clock on it, and then it's always set for 7 o'clock, which means completion. Circle completion, 7 o'clock. If the clock strikes 7, 7 is that number. That's it. So I appreciate a lot of feedback from the Revelation series of the Bible quotes that I send every day. So I got some good feedback off of that, and I appreciate that. So it lets me know that things are still going good. So when I start my series off, number one, I'm not no whiteboard artist or whatever, so I can break it down to you the best that I can. Again, there's 7 parts on my business card that I'm going to break down, and we're going to go ahead and get started with the 7 keys to being God force. We're going to start off with wisdom here in just a moment. Then we'll go work our way down to love, awareness, motivation, faith, and character. And then I specifically left one blank because this is going to be a great series. When I get to the end of it, we'll fill that in together. And then that final part of that will be about purpose and alignment. And we'll get further to each one of these topics as I continue the piece. So getting started, what is wisdom? I know a lot of people think that you know what wisdom is or whatever. So as you think about that, I'm going to explain it. But grab you some pen and paper and pay attention to the highlighted portions of these different things, because they all come together. We'll do a review at the end. So wisdom, several different meanings. Just I've been doing a lot of research and writing, looking up things back and forth. So wisdom is a quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. The quality of being. An example of that, you could say, is the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of anything, which puts you in a position to be a decision maker. So the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of. So if you're at work, and let's say you work at McDonald's and you got to flip burgers, and there's no timer, you got to know in your best interest, okay, it's time to flip this burger. Which probably now they don't do that anymore. Use Teflon and you press it down, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's up to you to have good judgment of, okay, are the fries done or not? If the beeper's broken, are the fries done or not? You make the best decision. You put yourself in a position, because now there's an application or method that you need to resolve or solve. That's an issue that could become a problem. So therefore, you apply yourself in this application to become a decision maker. If you are a car salesman, for example, you have an application. Your application is to sell the car. So you use the best judgment, good judgment, hopefully, to sell that vehicle at the right price to that person. If you're on the other end of that car sales deal and you're the buyer, hopefully you're being wise enough to make the best decision to get it from the right dealership, or making the best purchase for you and not for somebody else. So just a couple examples of that. Another example is the body of knowledge and principles that develops within a specified society or period. For example, a religious, government, an era, honors, like you have honor society in school. You have the 60s era or the 70s era, the baby boomers, or there was a group of people, specific group of people that were known to be wise in certain things. Um, Government, I'm not going to touch on that, but in order to be in these different societies, you have to have a certain level of wisdom of applications to deal with these certain topics. Religious, whatever it is, whatever religion you want to call yourself to be, you have to be some sort of wise man in order to be able to deal with that application. And you are amongst other people who are wise in those particular societies or time period or the era. Moving into wisdom, wisdom can also be defined as emotional thinking, maturity level. It can also be defined as a change of direction or reflection, as well as having a keen awareness of interdependence of all things. So let's break that down a little bit. As you see, some things are underlined in red. So it can also be defined as emotional thinking, cognitive skills, maturity. Your emotional thinking, you should grow emotionally in your thinking to be mature enough to not to continue to make the same mistakes that you make over and over and over again, and you keep getting knocked on the head. Doesn't make sense, right? So hopefully through your emotions, if your heart is right, if your spirit is right, your emotional direction, your emotional thinking will help you to mature more. Having a change of direction, reflection. So you have a change of direction, you become wiser. Because if I'm going to keep walking and I'm walking into this wall, okay, and I keep walking into this wall and I'm not getting anywhere, then I'm not making a wise decision. So when I finally get the gumption enough to change direction, knowing I can go around, then I become successful. And then I can reflect back and say, well, look, okay, I kept hitting this wall and I wasn't getting anywhere. Okay, so now let me reflect back. How many times did that happen? Every single time. It reflected to you every single time that you could not get through this wall, that you have to go around through the door. So at that point, you reflect back and you have that change of direction, which is another sign of wisdom. Having a keen awareness of interdependence of all things. All things. Interdependence. You know what dependence is. You know what an interdependence is. It's inside of you. Interdependence of all things. All things have their own being. All people have their own levels of wisdom and their interdependence. So for you to have respect is what this is coming down to. And a compassion for others. All things, compassion. Be compassionate and aware of the interdependence of all things or other people. You must have compassion for other people. How can you become wise if you don't? That doesn't make sense. You have to be compassionate towards other people because they're tools to learn from to help you become wiser. And I'm sure some of you may or may not know this quote, but no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt. Think about that quote. That's a pretty wise quote from what most people consider to be a wise person. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So if you're wise enough, you understand and know that there's no one person that can make you feel like you're nothing. You know how wise you are because you've been in your shoes. No one else has walked in your shoes. Now, big question. Can you become wiser with age? I know there's a lot of controversy going on in between there. Yes, you can become wiser with age. A lot of people do. That goes back to those eras of time and those societies that were alive back then. And even some that are still living today. But not always. So we're going to answer this a two-part answer to this question. Yes, you can become wiser with age. Some reasons being, back in the day, in the 70s or so on and so forth, you had a lot of geriatric neuropsychologists that did a lot of research, and other people did a lot of research. And they showed that young people just don't have as much information stored up in their head as older people do because older people have been living longer. So therefore, they've seen a lot of the same issues come up time and time and time and time. 70s, 80s, 90s, year 2000. They've seen a lot of the same issues that have come up, or applications, if you will, through their life, and they have enough common sense after 30, 40, 50 years of running across the same things that, okay, it's either this way or no way. And they become wise in their decision making. Now, there are a lot of older people that still are not wise. Because number one, they don't have compassion for other people. No, they don't have respect for the interdependence of young people or even other people. So they still tend to have the young mindset, which is not as wise as others, because there are a lot of young wise people that are way more wiser than older people. So get it together. So it's a yes or no, yes and no answer to that question. And I'm sure you know a lot of people that are older than you that are not as wise as you, and they should be. But that's why you got to keep moving forward and give them the wisdom to help each other out. So some reasons that young people just don't have it together. Some of us, a lot of us do. There are a lot of smart young people, so I'm not taking that away. Technology has gotten young people so lazy that we don't take the time to understand. We read just to read. We don't read with understanding. We listen to respond instead of listen to understand, because technology is so quick and it's there. Okay, yeah, I see it, boom. But there's no depth in it. There's no depth in it. So there's no understanding because the technology has taken over and it's made you mentally lazy. So even the teachings that you were taught in school, a lot of it, you come to find out, a lot of things that were in textbooks aren't true, or they're just a piece of the truth and a cover up or a makeup. The teachings at home, like your parents teaching you this and teaching you that, teaching you right and wrong. But nowadays, wrong is right and right is wrong. Doesn't make sense, does it? That's not wise. But you have a lot of people that grew up in the 70s, 60s, 50s, 80s that teach the wrong things. They teach hate. They teach fear instead of teaching love and power. So there are several different reasons, because it's the lack of wisdom that's being passed on from generation to generation is what's hurting the future. It's the lack of wisdom that is missing right now. And that's why you see things getting worse and worse and worse. But you have those people with the older generation. Yeah, I've seen it. Yep, been there, done that so many times, because they're wise and they stay away. They stay out of those type of issues and things. Albert Einstein. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So in other words, you're in one mindset over here and you're making a bad decision. So when you don't use your wisdom and think it through with understanding, and you have a particular issue or application and you try to solve it with the same mindset, you're going to get the same result. Nothing. Nil. Zero. So you must change your mindset. In other words, become wise, train yourself, have a change in direction, a reflection on how that issue came about to begin with and what you were thinking when it happened. And then you must change it in order for it to work, and you get the end result that you need and that you're supposed to get, which is positive instead of negative. Another question for you. Everybody wants to know, and we're going to wrap it up. Where does wisdom come from? Oh, everybody, I don't know. Comes from here, comes from there. You got all these psychological and whatever you want to call it. Wisdom is a gift from God. None other than. It's that simple. To me and to most. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Wisdom is a gift from God. Period. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. That's Proverbs 9:10. That's the NIV version, but you can look it up yourself and look up wisdom. There are several different passages about wisdom. There's 1 Corinthians Second Corinthians. There's so many that talk about wisdom, but wisdom is simply put a gift from God. You can define it as whatever you want, but it comes from God. It's a gift from God. And you've had different people tell you different things about it. And you have this guy named Reinhold Niebuhr. Some people don't know who he is, but you do remember this phrase that you see all the time. And you hear older people who are wise kind of repeat this to you all the time. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Think about that. I know that's very familiar to everybody, to a lot of people. If you heard it, you may not understand it, but we're going to review that real quick. So going back to wisdom, we define what wisdom is. The things that I'm reviewing right now are the things that are highlighted. So if you wrote these things down on a piece of paper, you can see how they all connect. Wisdom, good judgment, experience, knowledge, decision making, maturity, reflection, compassion for all things. Things that can deter you from being wise is technology, teachings, the lack thereof. Wisdom is simply a gift from God. Fear the Lord. Wisdom, knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And in this simple phrase, serenity, courage, and wisdom. They all go together. So that's your homework from the syllabus. And I always get in with my quote. Are you living your dream or are you still asleep? So think about it. That's what wisdom is. We're breaking it down. So coming up, next session will be about love. Part 2 of the syllabus, 7 keys to being God force. Until then, God bless you. Have a great week. Hope I see you on the 15th of November. Stay tuned. Please share it. Follow me. I'm on Facebook, LaShawn, Darren Price, syllabus.org, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Or you can find me on YouTube, Keyword Education. Take it easy.